guys, how you doing? So today I just wanted to talk a bit about how to make Neuro bases, but more so to do with like the workflow involved in doing it effectively. Yeah, if you're interested in making this sort of music, you would have seen probably a few tutorials so far already, like discussing sort of this method that I have used to create these sounds, but I've never really seen anyone kind of walk through some effective ways to get the most out of your work and turn one sound into like 20 sounds without having to repeat all the processes involved. So yeah, that's what we're going to do today. Like I said, not going to go too far into the sound designy aspects of this. If you're interested, I'm pretty sure Frequent has like if you search sine compression bass on YouTube, you'll find tutorials on how to use this method. Frequent definitely has one. I learnt a lot of stuff from Joe Ford's tutorial. Copycat may even have some similar stuff. Anyway, typically you start with a sine wave and you compress the shit out of it, distort it, filter it, EQ it, basically adding more and more movement every time, limit it, squeeze it to the roof, resample it, distort it, filter it, movement, resample it, on and on and on until you're satisfied. So yeah, so generally, like I said, you start with a sine wave. Unfortunately, I'm missing like one or two steps. I bounced in place, so we no longer have that first step, but it was a pretty simple operator patch. Just using some FM, introducing the second and third harmonic on top of the root, and with a little bit of fine tune, like fine shit, so that I don't misquote things. Yeah, so I don't know if you call that fine tuning, but whatever that is doing, it just adds some movement into the cycle instead of being static. And I would play with it like basically from the second, third and fourth oscillator. Playing with it over here can take away the integrity of the sub of the low end. This not so much. Okay, so anyway, this is sort of where we're going to start. Cool, so yeah, a little bit of movement starting to come in there. Very dull sounding at this stage. Bounce it out, put it into a sampler. So I love using sampler because of this FM module. So sampler is one of the only samplers, if not the only samplers, that has this FM function. FM is usually typically only seen in like synthesizers, but this is able to frequency modulate the signal of a live moving modulating sample, which is pretty unbelievable. If you play with the volume, the course, and the envelope here, you can make some cool sounds like this. Okay, so already getting some movement and some variation in the sound there and the texture. So we resample that out. I think I just boosted the mids, just a little bit of mid work, and potentially, so this is as good a time as any to talk about how you should set up your limiters when you're doing this. So basically, after each process, you kind of want to limit it. Yeah, just squeezing everything back up to the roof. So, because a lot of what you're doing, like when you're filtering it, you're cutting away a lot of sound, but the limiter is able to like pull back that sound, but also still retain the character of the movement in a way. Keeps it this nice fat sausage of disgusting compressed bass. Anyway, settings, if you're using Pro L, I really advise you to do this. Oversampling is a good idea. The style, you want it to be punchy. The main purpose of what we're doing is trying to preserve the transients of the bass, so we get those like real gritty, like gritty textures and stuff, and nothing's like rounded. We don't want anything like kind of rolled over or blurred. So I learned this from Joe Ford, but really interesting is the fact that Pro L is actually 2 limiters in one plugin, but you can only see one. We only see the front end, the first limiter, and this is what all these controls are referring to as just the first one. The second one is behind the scenes in the code, and it just flat out makes sure that, like, if this one slips up, it just makes sure that nothing's jumping over 0. So it's a much faster, more robust limiter. Robust might not be the right word, but that's the one we want to use, essentially. So look ahead to 0, attack all the way up, release all the way down, and play with this until you're getting a decent amount of gain reduction without distorting. Okay. So yeah, that's all you need to do there. Resampled it out again. Put it in these guys. Okay, so another sampler. This one, I'm modulating the morph. So this setting here is the morphing filter. This is a really cool part of sampler. Allows you to, move and blend between like all the different filter modes, like so. Epic amounts of very create some nice usable little segments there for us. However, I did want to have a version that wasn't being totally destroyed in the low end as well. So I just duplicated this MIDI clip, turned off the filter, and instead I automated just a simple notch. Okay, and the result looks like this. So you can see this is our very, very filtered one, and this is the notch. So again, moving along. Okay, now we go into contacts, which is like sort of like my last step, or one of my last steps. Contacts are a really powerful sampler. The reason I like it the most is, well, it has some really nice effects. It's a really nice flanger, really nice phaser. The chorus is good too. Pretty much everything in Contact is A class. Yeah, it's really well engineered, and you can just get even more movement out of it. It's quite impressive. So you'll see I've got a couple EQs here, just that are all automated. Just doing like bits of wobbles in like sweet spots of the frequencies. Bit of a BR, band reduction. It's basically a notch. Yeah, and you just right click and you can tell it how you want to automate it. So an LFO or an envelope. These flexible envelopes are dope. They look like this. And in between this line, this yellow line, and this yellow line, it will just loop forever. So yeah, a couple of these guys. What's creating the most movement in this particular instance is the fact that I have automated the tune. So the tune is being automated by this flexible envelope here, which the thing about Contact is it's not very well laid out. So like the things that are automating it pop up down here, and I guess the modulation tab, that does kind of make sense. And then here's like the amount that modulation source is going to do it. So if you click, it'll tell you, see it's up at 12 semitones there, a full octave, which means that when we get to the ceiling here, that's a whole octave above our root note, which is F. I generally try and keep things at the roof or the bottom and everywhere in between, just so that so I know that it's F or high F or sweeping up towards F or coming back down towards F. Obviously I didn't do that here, but yeah, whatever. So a little bit of OTT multiband. You can use Ableton's stock OTT as well. Works fairly well. So then we get this guy. More limiting. So yeah, lots of pitch movement now, which is nice. Okay, here's the part that I wanted to show you. So there's, like I said, there's tons of tutorials on how to get to this stage, but this is sort of what I haven't really seen from any tutorials so far. So now that we've got this big sample, it's time to start trying to make some usable little segments that maybe will inspire an idea or whatever else. So first of all, I know that in any projects where I'm going to be using these sounds, it's most probably going to be at around 87. I like to write a lot of halftime, or even you could use them in drum and bass. It's a multiple of 87. So the reason why I do that is just so that I can use this metronome to kind of keep the rhythm. And essentially all of these things that I'm going to show you are all looped little sections of this big sample. So okay, so very quickly just go over how to do this. So we'll turn this guy off for a second. I recommend you, until you find your sweet spot, this is what you do. Big MIDI clip. Let's just solo this too. I don't know why that's done that. Okay. One big long note, sort of like how we've been doing. What that allows us to do. Make sure your end point, because when you first load this up, your end point's going to be like kind of tucked in with all these things. Send it right to the back so we can use the whole sample. This is your start point. But when you're trying to find a little tasty morsel of sound, you want the loop to catch it. I sort of I like using the metronome to determine the loop length that sort of sounds rhythmic. So once the cursor's been caught in the loop, then you can move the loop around. This is like the powerful part. Ooh, that's kind of fucking gnarly. So once we've found our section that we're going to loop, then we play with adjusting this guy. Okay, worth mentioning the sustain mode. Yeah, you'll need to click that actually. If by default it'll be like that and you won't have a loop to play with. So make sure you click either one of these two. This will play back and forth. Usually give it a little bit of crossfade so that it doesn't clip. And also snap helps too. Snap basically only lets you choose, it forces this point to the zero crossing. So the reason why I can't move that to say here is because that's not a zero crossing. This is a zero crossing right there. So you're not going to get any clipping. Okay. Now, yeah, say we like that sound or whatever. Then I usually go in and play with, first of all, I would find the sound without anything else. Yeah, cool, whatever. And then I go in and play with the FM and see if I can make it better. When I was doing all these sounds, I found I didn't really go below 0.5. 0.25 is just a little too, because the sound's already so low. just mutilates the low end. The loop section, yes, basically all of these sounds are all just made by choosing a piece of sound, playing with the FM oscillator course, volume, and waveform, and the envelope, and then also pitch. There's a few of them I'll show you have pitch movement. This guy here, the loop, you can loop it by milliseconds, which is nice. I'll push this up a bit so we can hear really audibly what's happening. Let's go sine wave. Okay, so that kind of sounds actually kind of rhythmic. Yeah, I play with all the values, and keeping the metronome on just kind of helps you, like, yeah, find something that sounds sort of rhythmic, and yeah, just experiment. Honestly, like, we could make so many variations of the sound, pushing the yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's worth experimenting with though. This guy's another one that you should definitely experiment with. Pitch envelope, so we tell it, like, maybe let's try like 24, like 2 octaves up. Let's make it a linear fall instead of that curve. Oh yeah, by the way, they don't make this obvious, but if you click the names, it allows you to change the slopes. Click them again and you get to change the values of time. Okay, so okay, so I'm just going to show you a bunch of little tricks with this one, and then I won't worry about going through all the rest. I'll just play them through for you. Essentially everything is just made by playing around with this sort of stuff. So say we wanted like the fall to sort of end here. So I'm gonna make this note like that. 2 of these like that. Okay, so say we want it to fall and sort of like level out about here. I might change this. Yeah, sweet, that sounds cool. Okay. So if we want the fall to end here and level out, just be stable, highlight the section, and so look down here when I'm hovering my cursor back up over the sample. See how it says 1379, like duration. So all we have to do is go here to the decay and go 1379. For some reason it says 138, but it doesn't. Oh, I guess that's rounded up. Yeah, sure. Anyway, now you watch, it'll stabilize right there. Cool, hey? Play with the amount, maybe just like, maybe an octave is better. Maybe underneath. Lots of options here. So maybe we give it some curve and try punch it right up to 48. Yeah, that's cool. So things like that. Experiment. And mind you, like, this is no post-processing whatsoever. This is all just the instrument. So you can only imagine where these basses could end up, you know, with a big long chain of processing and frequency splitting and modulation. Like, this is just the starting point, so really, really powerful. So I'm going to play through all of these sounds just in case you're curious for what I made. Ooh, one last thing that I'll show you, because this guy is gonna, this guy and the other guys. Okay, so anyway, this is what it sounds like. So it's just got these like inflections. This is like an octave up, so it's just a high F. Okay. Now we would hate for to have two notes playing at once when it's considering it's a bass, because it would just sound hideous. You get mad frequency phasing issues. Just big no-no. So you go into Filter Global Voices 1. Then you go to Pitch Oscillator, and down here this is the glide module. So yours will be off like that. Change it to glide, and then play with the time until you're happy. 300 sounded good for this. Cool. And that's it. That's all there's to it. Awesome. Alright, so now what's the easiest way to get these guys into your library and usable, easily accessible? So easiest way I've found is I just grabbed them all, copy and pasted them over at the front of my project like this, and just moved all the MIDI clips so they're underneath each other. I'm not going to press play because we'll all die. But all we have to do at this point is select the maximum amount of range for your clips like this. Then we're going to click the channel itself. You'll notice this stays selected, which is handy, and go up and select all the channels. Now we go export. Yours is going to say master. We want it to say selected tracks only. Check all that is appropriate for what you're doing. Bang. Now I'm going to find my user library, my basses, and we're going to go new folder, November, Neuro sessions, and F, so that we know what the note is. Okay, you'll see in my the way I like structure my library is the type of sound it is, then like a descriptor, main descriptor, I can think about it. And then maybe like some little extra details, plus pitch modes, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So, just like that, and save. Okay, beautiful. So now when we go into our user library, you can see I've had a couple attempts at this video. So yeah, it's we've got all of our samples here. Amazing. The last thing I would do before I call it a day would be, because like, yeah, the loop sections are cool, but also like there's a lot to say about how much movement this shit has got. You know, if you just took a clip of that and were like, you know, that's a cool little stab or something. Oh, may as well show you this before we wrap it up. Change this to beats mode, warp, press loop like that, and now you can just cycle through the waveform. Ooh, better solo that. Okay, so yeah, that's how I do it. I just like make a small amount of clips. Like say I want a bass fill for the last bar of my track or whatever. Just like cool. You get the idea. So yeah, the last thing I would sort of do is grab this guy, go November, Neuro sessions, full sample plus pitch mods, because this is the one that came out of Contact where all the pitch got modulated. This guy is just straight F. Oops. So there's a bunch of movement but no pitch movement. So yeah, I'll grab that guy and I'll chuck him in there. And I'll grab this guy, chuck him in there. Done. Hope you guys learned something. We'll see you guys next time.